Welcome to the B-Max Sports Podcast.
Hey, we got 30 minutes for the rest of our lives. 30 minutes for the rest of our lives.
Make sure to subscribe on all platforms.
Let's be great. Let's be great.
Hope you enjoy the show.
Wake up, ladies and gentlemen. It's that time again. We're back in the cut. Josh, how was your day, man?
Dude, this past week has been amazing. Got back to work, into the real world again. Thriving, baby.
Good stuff. Mine's been hot. My AC in my house is broken, and the guy that's supposed to come fix it can't come until Friday morning, so it is hot as balls in here.
Dude, I'd be calling
Even now that
another
it's cold
guy.
outside.
I'd be calling another guy.
Well, the other guy called wanted $300 more, so I think I'll wait.
Yeah.
I think I'll wait a little while.
Say that money, King.
Yeah, got to. So let's get right into it. First thing we're going to talk about, did you hear the news about DeAndre Baker and Quentin Dunbar?
I did not.
Okay, so you know who DeAndre Baker is.
I'm sorry. Yes, I did. I haven't heard any updates, but I did hear that I'm fairly sure Baker has turned himself in.
Yeah, he did.
And then, but I haven't heard anything else about that.
Basically, they got arrest warrants issued for him for 4 counts of armed robbery and 4 counts of aggravated assault with a firearm. Now, DeAndre Baker, of course, is denying it, saying he has witnesses that say he was not party of them stealing the jewelry or whatever happened. But, I mean, all that's going to play out in court. But interesting that a player from Georgia and one player from Florida both have felony warrants for their arrest, so that's interesting. I find it hard to believe that these guys have it made. All they got to do is play football and stay out of trouble, and they're going to make money where they're set for life. So I just find that interesting.
Dude, I don't understand it. Because, I mean, these guys are set to make money hand over fist for playing a game. And, I mean, they'll make multi-millions of dollars. I mean, they'll have the nice cars, the nice jewelry, the girls, big nice houses, wherever they end up playing football at. I mean, they're all going to be in big cities, have all this stuff, man. And then you go to and rob something. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
I agree.
I mean, if it was
it's hard to fathom.
If it was Antonio Brown at this point, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
but
he's got a couple screws loose.
But these guys, I mean, come on, man. It just, I don't understand it, and it kind of falls in the same wheelhouse as Tekashi 6ix9ine, where the dude was making money hand over fist, just rapping, because there was a point in his career where he wasn't involved in the gang activity. And then just to get some street cred, Bud starts running with these guys and gets,
Treyway.
I mean, he gets in trouble. And I mean, I don't understand the mindset, because you've got such a big career ahead of you that you're going to make millions upon millions of dollars. And yet you still have to have that behind the curtains dang secret life that you're running. You're running with gangs where you can get locked up, and you're running with people who rob and steal. It just doesn't make sense to me, if you're an extremely wealthy person, why you would do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with maybe how they grew up. I could see it being hard to get away from some of your old habits, but when you're as wealthy as these guys, robbery just doesn't make sense. Like, you can probably go buy the shit, problem.
Even if, obviously some of these guys probably didn't have the best upbringing, and they had it hard, and that's what they had to do when they were kids. But I mean, at some point you got to look in the bank and be like, oh man, I have almost $1 million chilling in my checking account. I don't have to do this no more.
I can buy that shit I was going to steal. I can actually afford it. So, I don't know exactly what they stole. I believe the article I read said they robbed some dude for some jewelry. I don't know. But it's interesting. And now that you brought up Tekashi 6ix9ine, I kind of want to talk about him a little bit. What do you think about his iconic comeback? I think it's hilarious, dude. That people were counting him out. Let's be honest right now. I don't fuck a street code. If there's street code and gang code, then what y'all did to him broke the code. He is no longer affiliated with you motherfuckers. Y'all were banging his baby mama, kidnapped him, beat the shit out of him, held him up gunpoint, stole millions of dollars from him, and then you want him to be loyal to you when he gets locked up? No, that's not how the shit works, Hoss. Fuck your street code. That's just logic. If the guy was running with y'all were loyal at the time. I can almost guarantee you, Tekashi 6ix9ine is probably isn't even in the position to snitch on you guys. You're probably all locked up together. But since he separated himself towards the end of right before he got arrested and got indicted on all these charges, racketeering and all that shit, he separated himself from you guys for a reason. Because y'all were banging his baby mama, because y'all tried to have his mom kidnapped and killed, but y'all tried to kill him, and you expect loyalty from that? I think that's absurd. I don't know what street code that is, but if you beat the fuck out of me and try to kill me, there's no more street code, homie. I'm pretty sure that's against street code. Don't fucking bang on your homies. Like, what the fuck?
Dude, that was a whole wild turn of events. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden,
fuck them bitches.
all of a sudden, he's just back out on the streets, man. I don't understand that whole deal, because all these people are like, oh, he snitched this, that, and the other. And like you said, they had totally separated themselves from each other. I mean, they tried to do all that stuff to him. I ain't covering for nobody that tried to get me swacked.
Fuck
I mean,
no.
there's
dumb.
no situation.
People
that-
just hate 6ix9ine because he's very successful, and he did, like you said, when he first came into the rap game, he was getting a lot of shit about not being in these gangs and stuff. So what he did is he used Treyway as a way to get, popularity in the streets. Treyway used him for money, of course, that's obvious, and clout to get their name out there. They were using each other. Once those uses ran dry, they separated themselves. They were no longer affiliated. Fuck all that bullshit, not snitching. I can understand you not snitching. Like, if they had grown up together and all that shit, yeah, of course. There's obviously a code of ethics there, I guess the streets live by. But once you I've seen the video of him getting kidnapped. He's literally posted up with his brother driving him. They come up, pistol whip him in the fucking face, drag him out the car, and he's like, are you going to kill me? They're like, we don't know yet. Motherfucker. And you don't want me to snitch on that? No, yeah,
right.
You got life.
Especially when you come at me to that 25 years to life, bro.
That's an easy decision.
I will get a publisher and write a documentary on the BS that we did. I swear to God.
Exactly. I think it's funny because even when he was in, you seen, like he said in his Instagram live, the record-breaking Instagram live where he had over 2 million viewers at one time. He pretty much come out and said, there's no street code once you do all this shit to me, and I tend to agree with him. And I don't even really care that much for 6ix9ine. His music's okay at best. It'll get you hype. I still listen to it. Now, I'm not a fan of 6ix9ine the person. He runs around acting kind of wild and shit. But I do admire the fact that people were counting him down, counting him out, saying, oh, nobody's going to listen to your shit. Then he comes out, hits Billboard #1, first song out, fucking breaks the YouTube record for most views in 24-hour period, blows it out the water, breaks Instagram live shit. I mean, just comes back and he's very successful. I hope he keeps his nose clean. I don't think he has any choice at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and he's got to, because the next time there's not going to be any kind of plea bargain or anything like that. He's going away. I honestly don't think he's smart enough not to, though. I mean, he might be. This whole, you got to remember a lot of this stuff, like these rappers and guys. I mean, like, there's guys that are like legit, like gangsters. Like Snoop was a gangster. Freaking Tupac's the gangster. I mean, there's guys, rappers who are legit gangsters, and there's a lot of these guys who just put up on this show. But I know exactly what you're about to say, talking about the Snoop Dogg talking junk about him.
Yeah, and then 6ix9ine pulled up a video of Suge Knight in jail, and he was like, they were asking him about Snoop Dogg. He said, something's funny is going on with Snoop Dogg. He said, we're always together, and when we go to jail, he's never gets arrested. He said, something ain't right. He said, I think he's singing. like fucking saying he was a rat too. That shit was hilarious.
Because I mean, he called out 6ix9ine for being a snitch. He was like, talked junk about him, called him a rat, and said he wasn't no dog, that he was a cat or some crap like that.
Yeah,
And I mean, he was talking mad junk. And I mean, my thing is too, like I'm like you, if he's hanging out with that, and Snoop Dogg's at an unbelievable level of fame.
yeah,
And he's obviously been in life before. I mean, a lot of
yeah,
people
for
don't know
sure.
he was on trial for murder at one time. I mean,
Yeah.
people don't realize that, but he was. He's not the Snoop Dogg that we see just chilling at his house, smoking weed and going and baking cookies with freaking Martha Stewart is not the Snoop Dogg from 25 years ago.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm so I hate to say it, but just looking at Snoop and looking at how he looks, if he doesn't have a gun, I'm probably beating his ass. That dude's like
he does
112
look
pounds.
he does look decrepit as hell.
Dude, he's
But I
fucking
mean,
ugly as hell too.
I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, the FBI knows this man has connections and they come up to him and is like, look, we know you're famous. You're really kind of untouchable at this point. So we're going to let you slide on the parties and the weed and anything you really want to do if you just help us out every now and then. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. It sounds like something the FBI would do, them sneaks.
Yeah, that would make sense, and they'd be even on Snoop Dogg's part. That's stupid not to take. You know what I mean? Like you can do whatever the fuck you want. But anyway, all right, moving on. Let's talk about Elon Musk. His little interview he had on the Joe Rogan Experience about the coronavirus. I'll let you take this away, and I'll give you my thoughts on it after. I did listen to it though.
First off, have you seen his Twitter feed lately?
I don't think I follow him on Twitter.
Dude, you got to follow the man on Twitter. I mean, he's not
Here, I'll
popping
follow
off.
him now.
He's not popping off all the time, but here recently, you know, he's been a really strong component of coming out and saying, "Look, this quarantine is BS." And as we all know, Elon Musk is a freaking computer, man. I don't even know if that guy's a human being.
Yeah,
And I mean, you got to respect the fact that, I mean, the guy probably has no feelings whatsoever. So all he looks at is the hard data on this coronavirus and probably on everything in his dude. That man's probably having sex thinking about what angles and geometry he's at. So, I mean, he looks at the data and says that, I mean, and this guy's probably the smartest man on earth. I don't care if he's a doctor or not. People are like, oh, well, Elon Musk is not a doctor. But you think that if Elon Musk wanted to be a damn doctor, he wouldn't be one?
exactly.
I mean,
he makes too much money. Why would he'd take a pay cut being a doctor?
Dude, he could be whatever he wanted to be. I mean, you're talking about the dude who's putting cars on rocket ships and being like, hey, I want to see how long this thing will orbit the Earth. See ya. Throws them. I mean, there's people, they're getting on Twitter, oh, Elon Musk is not a doctor. Don't listen to this dude. Dude, he can have a PhD in whatever the frig he wants. And you're telling me that his opinion is irrelevant?
I'll tell you whose opinion is irrelevant. That little 13-year-old bitch. What's her name?
Greta Thunberg. I know exactly.
Yeah, that bitch.
Hey,
she's not a doctor, but they
she's
won't hesitate to let her take her opinion.
She's 17 now, and
Whatever the fuck. She's fucking. I don't give a shit how old she is. She's not a doctor, and they've got her on the little committee or whatever, right? I saw a fucking article with that bitch on there.
And it was already a stretch. I mean, a gigantic farce that she was some kind of climate change expert.
Yeah,
I mean, some 16-year-old comes across the ocean on a yacht, and they acted like it was this big deal. Number one, it's not like she paid for the yacht. Somebody stuck her little ass on that yacht. I mean, no doubt in my mind. Unless you just commandeered the thing and then got on there and was like, all right,
Pirates
guys.
of Somalia.
Yeah, all right, guys, I'm commandeering this ship, and now y'all have to drive me to America. No, that didn't happen. So, I mean, her whole climate, I mean, and if you've ever seen, anybody who knows me knows I do watch a lot of political crap on Facebook, YouTube. I like to get into it. It's a hobby of mine. If you've ever seen her off script when she doesn't have a teleprompter, it's just exactly what you would expect. I mean, I'm not saying the girl is dumb. I'm just saying she's young. And anybody, any grown person is not going to take advice from a 16-year-old. I mean, dude, I wouldn't even take advice from my 16-year-old self because I was an idiot. Still am an idiot. I'm not. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm far from one of the smartest people I know. But
Right.
I mean, at, uh, you're taking. We're taking. Trying to. I mean, they're trying to make policy off of what this chick says, and then on top of that, we're gonna sit there and put her up there with. I think the list was. Uh, the ex director of the CDC. Um, at one time, the lady who's going to be on there with her, it was director of Homeland Security, and then you have one of CNN's flunkies, and then Greta Thunberg. How well is that going to go?
Probably not too well. This so speaking of climate change, I just want to say something real quick. I've been reading this book called Sapiens. Excellent read, and I'm gonna get into it a little bit later. But climate change is something that's happened over the course of as long as the Earth's been here, I believe. Like you see, everybody pretty much believes the ice age killed off the dinosaurs, that sort of stuff. Climate changes all the time. I don't think it's anything that to our doing. Are we polluting the Earth? Probably a little bit. But climate, come on, it changes all the time. Like I don't know what this. Anyway, continue. I'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about the book.
Well, and I don't believe in man-made climate change. I do believe
Me
that the
neither.
Earth fluctuates and the climate of the Earth fluctuates. I mean, you look back in history, and like you referred to the Ice Age, we had 100 and freaking who knows how long, many years that the Earth was entirely covered in ice. And then you have another stage in history where the dinosaurs walked the Earth, and all of the Earth was like freaking Florida. I mean,
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
is
Exactly.
historical stuff that scientists come up and they're like, oh well, we're having climate. No, even their models say that it's gonna raise by like 0.2% of a Celsius in the next 50 years, and you're calling that dramatic and deadly, and we're gonna destroy. I think it's garbage. I think a lot of it is just you trying to. I mean, because I love this Earth we live on. I think we need to take care of it. That's completely different from being some kind of climate change, global warming wacko.
Yeah.
I do. I don't think we should throw our trash on the side of the road. I do think we should, if we can find a better way to control our carbon emissions, we probably should do that because I mean it's something that could help in the long run. But I don't see. I think it's just a way, and I mean, people are going to say, "Oh, you don't know what he's talking about." It's a way for the government to get hands on more of their money. I mean, of your money, your hard-earned taxpayer dollars. We all know they like to do it. They probably sit there in their big Scrooge McDuck chairs and count our taxpayer dollars every day and masturbate to it. So that's my spill.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree with everything you said, especially about climate change. I don't think it's man made at all. It's just if you look back over our history of our existence as Homo sapiens, I would say it's been climate change forever. Did they have cars back then? Absolutely not. So what was causing their climate change? It just fluctuates over time, is what I believe. But that's for another subject. So let's move on to the next topic. We touched on Elon Musk and his beliefs on the COVID stay-at-home order, whatever you want to call it. The next thing I want to touch on is called The Fifth Vital. I mentioned it previously in a podcast, but I finished the book. It's Mike Majulak. It's his pretty much biography. He had help writing it, but I highly recommend this book, guys. This guy's been through the ringer. He went from being a uh, opioid addict to mansions in Hollywood, and now he's dating Lana Rhodes, I think is her name. Dude, I mean, the guy's been through the ringer, and it teaches about the struggle of addiction. It also teaches about perseverance to overcome any situation. So I'll give you a little excerpt without ruining anything. So he had been on drugs for 10 years, I'd say, maybe more. And he finally found his grandfather died. It helped him get clean. He went to rehab and he stayed on the straight and narrow, and he was working odd jobs, taking care of his other grandpa. Anyway, long story short, he applies for this advertising. He had built a following on social media, and he reached out to this company. I can't even remember the name of it now. It slipped my mind. I should have wrote it down. But he ended up being like their social media person that advertised on social media. And that's how he got linked up with Logan Paul. They sent Logan Paul some couches from their company, and they sent them to him for free, and he advertised on his I think it was Instagram or Vine or something. Anyway, he started meeting up with Logan Paul and doing stuff regularly for advertising purposes. And Logan Paul's like, "Hey, come join Team Maverick," and the rest is history. They're part of the largest and most popular podcast in the world, Impulsive. Pretty good. I like it. They have some interesting guests on there. Logan's kind of a fucktard sometimes, but Mike, I really like Mike. Mike's down to earth. He's just been through a lot that we can all relate to. So if you get a chance, it was number 2, I think, on the New York Times bestseller list for a little while. I think he's still in the top 10, but it's called The Fifth Vital. I got a Kindle, and a Kindle is it looks like a little tablet, and you can just download books onto it. So while I was downloading that book, I finished that one. I started reading, which is our next topic, The Diary of a Young Girl, which is the Anne Frank diary. Have you ever read this, Hodo? I think I read that in school, but I couldn't remember it.
I know for a fact that I read it in school, and I mean that's been years ago. And the reason I know I read it in school is because there was a mobile Anne Frank museum that actually came through Dublin at one time, and I know we went to see it. So I know we read it, but it's been absolutely years and years and years since so I'm definitely not refreshed on the subject.
Well, I mean, there's not a whole lot to it, to be honest. I was expecting more, and because I thought, I can't remember if I read it in school or not, but I thought it was going to be much deeper into like the struggles and stuff they endured when she was hiding during the Third Reich, when Hitler was in charge in Germany. They fled to Holland, I believe. Fuck, I can't remember where they fled, to be honest. It wasn't important to the story, but they were staying in an attic of like a warehouse. They stayed up there for a number of years, and basically she encountered love, all this stuff. Anyway, long story short, it was rated highly. I wouldn't rate it that high. I'd probably give it like 2.5 stars. I know it's straight from her diary. That's what it was. So, but I would have liked to have read more about what was going on in the outside world, which I guess she didn't know a lot because they didn't have TVs. They had a radio they listened to at night. But basically, they made it to the end of the war. And then I think her and her sister died in a concentration camp due to some kind of outbreak of a virus or something like that, some kind of sickness. Her mom was murdered in one of the concentration camps. Her dad is the only person that made it out, but he ended up dying of old age and stuff, natural causes. But I'll be honest with you, if you haven't read the book, I probably wouldn't recommend you reading it unless you just are an Anne Frank fanatic. There's not that much to it. They're up there with like 2 other families, and it basically just tells you what they eat, how they shower, and shit like that. I mean, it's not that interesting to me.
I think there's some other books that you can read that give you, if you're interested in that sort of thing, that gives you more of like an outside perspective. It will give you information from the diary, but it gives you more of a perspective of what was going on during the time. I've seen books like that in the past, and obviously I can't think of any off my head, but you could probably definitely find some that were just got more into detail of what you're looking for, because I know you're probably looking for more of a historical.
Well, I just wanted her account of, like the dangers and stuff she encountered. Really, the only thing she said, she heard gunshots at night, planes flying over. I could have guessed that. I wanted to hear some fucking first account shit.
I don't know how much of a story you can tell when you're just locked in an attic with no windows behind a book cover for months. And
yeah,
months
it was behind a bookshelf. Yeah, it was.
So, like I said, obviously, very interesting piece of history, just because there's not many accounts.
First-hand accounts, right?
Yeah,
that's what I was looking for when I read it, because I was like, dude, I can't find any like first-hand accounts.
But
this is gonna be badass. But
I feel like you were looking for more action and like fear and drama and stuff like that. And
Well,
you could
I was
probably
hoping,
definitely find something like that, but
right. I knew she went to a concentration camp, and I was hoping. See, I didn't know her story. I didn't know she died in one of them. I thought maybe she got out and then wrote, like, finished off her diary before she died, and, like, told what happened in the concentration camps and shit like that. But I mean, I can pretty much guess what happened in them. They were starved, tortured, gassed, all that shit, all that bad shit. But I've been on a little reading spree here lately, so I started reading another book called *Sapiens*. Man, this is an interesting read. I don't necessarily agree with everything that's in this book because it has a lot to do with evolution and the Big Bang Theory and shit like that, which absolutely makes no sense to me. This guy does say some stuff that is logical though, that I think could be true. I'm not going to get into the details to ruin it for you, but I would highly recommend this book. I'm only about a fifth of the way done with it right now. It's pretty long. But basically, I'm going to bring up one point that he made that struck me. It was early on in the book, probably in the first 10 pages. And that's what got me glued to it. I was like, hey, that fucking makes sense, because I feel that way a lot of times. He basically says, we are not biologically set up for nuclear monogamous families because of our ancient ancestors and the way they lived. So the first people on Earth, according to this read anyway, and it makes sense to me. I don't know how we got here based on this book. It makes no sense how he says we got here. But anyway, he says they were like nomadic. They would move around to where the animals were, of course, because that was their main source of food. But the reason we weren't, that I feel a lot of people, once they get married in a monogamous relationship with nuclear family, which is of course, your children and your spouse, your immediate family, I feel like a lot of them stray outside of that marriage. I mean, a lot of it's lust, of course, but I feel like it's in our DNA from our first ancestors that roamed the earth, because most of those nomadic and hunter-gatherer people were not monogamous. They had multiple families. Matter of fact, the guy said they would have several men and women having intercourse with each other, and they wouldn't even know who the father was. So they would all just raise all the kids together. I feel like it might be something in our DNA, because when I'm in a relationship, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. It seems like when I'm out of a relationship, I'm not interested. I'm interested in, like, I find a girl and I'm like, oh, I'm really interested in her. And then once I grasp that, and I'm like, oh, I can be with her now. I can be in a relationship with her. I don't want to be. I want to do something else. You know what I mean? I just find it weird, and it struck me. But this book really dives into, like, how some people are black, some people are white. It has to do with pigmentation of our skin. I think in the beginning, I don't know a lot about the Bible, to be honest with you. I'm definitely going to end up reading that too. But I don't know what it says about the different races. From what I can gather from this book, it's pigmentation on your skin. Depending on where you lived, it was your body's natural way to try to find off those cancers. And if you lived in a very sunny region, your skin was darker, of course. And if you lived in, like, the polar regions, you were light skinned because you didn't need to fight off the sun and the heat and stuff. But it's very interesting, very, very interesting read. Like I said, just to read it, you don't have to take everything to heart and believe it. I just find it interesting to look at different theories and stuff like that.
well, and you kind of brought up the fact that you don't really know what the Bible kind of explains what theologians believe, where the races came and where all the different languages came from, and basically at one point in history, everyone was in the Middle East, and they wanted to get to a point where they wanted to get up and be able to see God, and they wanted to be able to make a stairway to heaven. So they started this tower, and in the Bible, the tower is called the Tower of Babel. Well, obviously, you can't build a tower to the gates of heaven. I mean,
Right.
you'd be before you. I mean, even if they did at that time, I mean, we look back in history. You look at the pyramids, crazy. I mean, we can't even figure out how they built the pyramids, even in 2020. And I mean, obviously we have access to a bunch of research and stuff like that. So, I mean, obviously they could build pretty amazing things in those days, but the way the Tower of Babel goes is that they were trying to build a stairway to heaven, basically, and they wanted to be able to walk up this stairway and meet God. And the Lord separated them and made it. They called it the Tower of Babel because, as the fable go or how the story goes, that God came down and he separated them and changed their tongues, which means that he gave them all different languages. So this group over here would be speaking one form of Arabic, and then this group over here would be speaking some other form of some other dialect, and then the group over here would be speaking another dialect, and the group over here, and they call it the Tower of Babel because one group would be looking at the other group and trying to communicate. And even though the day before they could talk to each other because they all spoke the same tongue, the next day it was just like they were babbling. So they broke off into groups in which they could understand the other people talking and spread out among the region. And that's how they say that the ones that went closer to the equator obviously got darker, and the ones that went up north didn't have to have as dark skin because, like I said, they weren't as close to the sun. So, and I could, there's probably some details that I'm missing out on, but that's, I mean, that's kind of the gist of the story.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense too. I mean, like I said, I don't take everything this book says to heart, but I mean, it's interesting if nothing else. So, um, let's move on. You wanted to talk about TikTok? I'll let you go ahead and talk about it. Go ahead.
Really what I wanted to talk about on TikTok is just, today in our society, I don't know if you keep up with much of, do you know what cancel culture is?
Yes. I do.
Where basically you say something and then it could be something that you said, I mean, when you were a teenager, and you could be a grown person now. And just because you said something insensitive or you said something that was slightly racist, or, I mean, and I mean, this could be 10, 15 years ago. Any type of fame you have now, people will go looking. I mean, people look for things to get you thrown out of the fame and fortune that you've created. I mean, it's just how human beings are. My main concern with TikTok now is that I mean, obviously it's a free country, you can do what you want, and I don't want to see it censored. But I think it's dangerous for kids because you can get on TikTok and you can say anything you want. You can make any kind of video, it goes up. And even if TikTok, it violates the terms and agreements of what TikTok's social standards are, whenever you put a video on the internet or whenever you send a tweet and whatever, I mean, anything like that, it's forever. I don't care if the internet takes it down. I mean, you see multiple accounts of a celebrity getting drunk, putting something they shouldn't have put on Twitter, or getting in a fight, and they might take the tweet down, but all you got to do is go to Google and type in, uh, what did Kim Kardashian say on Twitter yesterday, and even if she deleted it, it's pulling up a screenshot.
Yeah.
So my main concern is there was a case not too long ago on Twitter where some kids made a TikTok, and I don't
Oh,
know if
I
you've
know
ever
exactly
seen the
what you're getting into.
TikToks. I don't know if you've ever seen the TikToks where they'll say like how God made me, or this, that, and the other,
Yes, yes,
and
I
they'll
know exactly
pour
what
the
you're talking about.
cups. They will pour the cups of water in, or this, that, and the other.
Yeah,
Obviously, the kids made a racially insensitive TikTok. Now, should they have done it? No, it was stupid. I mean, you should have more sense than that. Especially in today's climate, you just got to know you're gonna catch shit for it. But what I don't understand is, I'm fairly sure they got kicked out of their high school. They couldn't
yeah,
walk.
they did.
They lost their scholarships to whatever schools they had. I think the girl, I don't know about the guy, but I think the girl might have been accepted to some kind of college and lost it. And I I really don't think that if you're under the age of 18 or in your early 20s, I mean, you've got to realize we're not smart people. Human beings are coherently flawed. I mean, it's in our DNA to be flawed. So my problem with it is that you give these kids free reign to post whatever they want. But when they post something you don't agree with, whether it's right or wrong, and you destroy their lives. Because right now, those kids don't have much of an option. And like I said, I'm not defending what they put up. I mean, I don't care. I mean, whatever they want, I mean, that's on them. I don't put things up like that. So it doesn't apply to me. But I think it's kind of ridiculous that you don't give these. I mean, obviously, if they want to come out and make an apology, but because of one stupid mistake by a teenager who obviously they're not fully developed in their brain. I mean, they're teenagers. They're not smart. They're not intelligent human beings, and they don't really have this kind of process and development that they could say, "Oh, well, that's not a great idea." And I mean, I've seen stuff on TikTok that has stayed up and deemed acceptable that I was like, that's no worse than what they did.
Right.
But because it was not about it wasn't about blacks, then those kids didn't get kicked out of their college. And my main thing is that if we're going to go ahead and do that, but if we're going to start kicking everybody out of college for stuff that people don't agree with, or stuff that's risque, or stuff that's racially insensitive, let's start doing it to everybody. You either do it to everybody, or you don't do it at all. And I think a lot of parents need to warn their kids that, hey, even though you can post whatever you want on there, just be careful, because just like these kids, you could post one thing that I mean, outrage culture this day. I mean, you could put anything up, and they're going to turn it into a whole big deal. And obviously, those kids probably didn't even mean anything by it. It was probably just some joke that they copied off of somebody else's TikTok in the first place and thought it was funny. So I kind of wanted to get your opinion on how you think that it should be dealt with, and do you think that this rise of social media and is going to really come back and bite Gen Z in the ass on what they post, and I mean, just their access at such a young age to such a broad audience?
Yeah. So now, like, when you go to job interviews and stuff like that, they even pull up your Facebook and look at your recent activity, stuff like that. And I think it's smart for the employer to do that, of course. But I agree with you. You've got to be careful what you post on social media, because it's permanent, like you said. And once you send it, it can't be undone. Unfortunately, you can't hit a reset button. It's a great tool because you can keep up with your friends from high school, from earlier parts in your life that you haven't seen in a long time. You can talk to them. I mean, at the click of a button. I think it's great. But like you said, especially these young kids that their minds haven't developed, and they do stupid shit just to get clicks and likes and stuff. I mean, you see people, like, for instance, I was watching a video the other day, and this young black man was on Facebook Live, I believe, or some kind of live, and he was running from the cops, screaming, "Fuck the cops!" Fuck the. Well, then he got his ass shot because he was doing it for the clout. Got his ass shot, and it's just the stuff that people will do for likes and clicks is ridiculous. And I understand it's a source of income for some of these kids, but you've got to be careful because it can have lasting effects on your life, and it can ruin everything you worked for. For instance, like the example you use, this girl had worked for 12 years or however long since she started school to go to college and better herself, and then one TikTok post. All she had to do was make the TikTok and click post, and that was the end of it. I mean, she's not going to that college anymore. I believe in second chances, so I think how it should be handled. I think it's at the discretion of which university she was going to. Of course, they get to handpick who they want to come there anyway. They get to go through the list of applicants. They get to see what race you are, what your SAT scores are, unfortunately, and they can pick who the fuck they want to come in there. So, unfortunately, that's how the world works. So, I'm sure some college will be willing to accept her. And as long as she stays on the straight and narrow, I think she should get a second chance at college. I mean, I don't think it should ruin her life.
Well, I mean,
because she made a TikTok.
That girl, I mean, I don't even know what her name is. I mean, they weren't famous TikTokers. So, I mean, these people have no problem destroy. I mean, because you see, this girl had nobody knows her. She has no notoriety. And then there's a singer, Camila Cabello, that she actually got, I mean, she's 22, 23-ish now, maybe. And I think she dates Shawn Mendes, I believe. If you don't, I mean, I don't know if you know who either one of those people are.
I know who Shawn Mendes is. I don't know who the other two is.
She dates a dude. Absolute freaking smoke show. She's Cuban, I believe. Absolute smoke
I love
show.
the dark skinned guys. Not guys. Sorry, let's stop there. Hold the fuck up. I like the dark skin. I meant to say I like the dark skinned guys, but not dark skinned guys. I'm not a homosexual. I have no problem with those. But
dude, she goes and she's starting to have a really successful music career. She's got some really good music, and maybe 3-4 months ago, somebody went and pulled a tweet from her back in like 2014 or 2013, where she was on Twitter and she shared a meme that said NIGGA. And they tried to paint her as a racist and as a bigot, and that she needed to be exiled. And it just makes no sense to me, because even these people who are calling her out, no matter if you're some kind of social justice warrior or not, there's a point in everyone's life where they've done something that they regret. They've done something that's racially insensitive. They've done something that is, I mean, insensitive in any way to anybody. And I mean, you can't, I mean, there's not one person on this earth that can claim that they've never done something that would offend someone. So I just, one of my pet peeves is someone being hypocritical, and it just really irks my nerves, because like I said, everyone's done something that's insensitive to someone. So for you to come out and get on your high horse and say, oh, well, she tweeted something back in 2014 that was racially insensitive. The girl was like, what? Oh, I can't even remember what I was in 2014. She's I think she's actually 22. So she's like 2 years younger than me. 2014, I would have been like 18-ish. So, I mean, she's like, what, 15, 16-ish? And you're going to hold her on, I mean, the woman that she is today, you're going to hold her accountable for a 15-year-old mind. And, I mean, she's not thinking. At this point, she's not famous. She shares a meme that is, I mean, whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. But, I mean, this outrage culture, this cancel culture where, I mean, you do whatever you want, and people are flawed. I really don't understand where a person will say, oh, well, it's just like the Louis C.K. thing, where I'm pretty sure that this girl came out and said, well, I was in Louis C.K.'s house. If you don't know who Louis C.K. is, he's a comedian. And we were all drinking and having a good time, and he beat off in front of me. And then he got cancel culture because of me too. And my thing is, look, you at this man's house, whenever he decides to whack it, that's on you to stay or leave, and you stayed. So that's on you, bro. Like, really. And I think it's just ridiculous, because you have this man who obviously really kind of weird to just whip it out in somebody and just start beating it. Not the smartest move. but you're going to cancel his whole career because of this.
Yeah,
And
I
I,
agree.
I think that kids just really, really need to learn from other people's mistakes and realize, hey, there's some stuff that in this climate, even if it's funny or not, I mean, you can make jokes that are racially insensitive. You can make jokes that are insensitive to mentally handicapped people that are funny. I mean, there's going to be people who laugh. You're going to have an audience some audience who thinks it's hilarious, some audience who thinks it's insensitive to mentally ill people. It's some audience who thinks it's insensitive to people of color. So I mean, it's just not a wise move. I think that all this social media is bad for this younger generation.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. It's like I said, it can be good if used in the right context and make sure you watch what you post. But for the most part, it's being used against us to manipulate our futures, and I think it's just going to keep getting worse. You see, new social media is coming out yearly. I mean, last year I'd never heard of TikTok, and this year it may have been out, but I didn't hear of it. Same thing with Instagram came along. MySpace was first. Facebook. It just keeps growing and getting more sophisticated and harder to backtrack what you've done. So, and I think earlier in the stages of social media, a lot of people were probably ignorant to the damages it could do and how lasting the effects are of what you say. But now in today's society, we know these things, and it would be ignorant for you to post something that could directly impact your future. I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's hard to explain what I'm trying to say, but you guys get the point. All right, Hutto, anything else you want to talk about?
Since we got a little more time, I mean, are you ready to get off?
No, I don't care.
I kind of
Whatever.
wanted to. I mean, you know how I am. Sometimes we'll start talking about something, and then I go off on some tangent, and we kind of we just go everywhere. I kind of wanted to
Yeah.
touch back on the Elon Musk thing because I know you said that you had watched the podcast with Joe Rogan. Do you think that he is? Um, how do you feel about his stance? And do you think his new found conservatism or he tweeted the other day, take the red pill, which I mean, if people don't know,
Yeah, I just read that.
there's an ongoing meme or kind of thing that has been going on for years that people say take the blue pill or take the red pill, which means pick which side of politics you are on. And so he tweeted take the red pill, and it's kind of odd to me because in the past he's not really been a very conservative person. And I don't, like I said, I don't know if he's a conservative person. At this point, he might just think that the Republican Party upholds the Constitution better than the Democrat Party does, and that could be because I mean he's been preaching on Twitter about the Constitution and people's God given rights for the past couple of days. So I just wanted to get your spill on it if you knew anything. I mean, what you've seen on it, or
Okay, so I don't want to step on any toes or anything here, but I just find it ironic, I guess, that during these times, Elon Musk, like you said, is one of the smartest men on earth. That now he hasn't been conservative in the past. That's what I was going to talk to you about earlier. But now he seems to be leaning towards the Republican conservative mindset, and I think, this is of course my opinion, that it's ironic that he's doing it during these times where these times are affecting his business. If you look at the stock market and just the amount of business Tesla is doing right now, he's not hurting for money, of course. I don't think at all. So don't get me wrong, but I think he's looking at it from a business perspective. That it's affecting his business and his well being of his business. And of course, he wants to get back to work because he wants his uh, business to be successful. And you got to get in there and make cars and sell cars for it to be successful. Like I said, he's not hurt for money, obviously, but I just find it ironic that during these times he's trying to side with the people that have always wanted to uphold the Constitution and have wanted to protect our rights. And then as soon as it affects him, like immediately, then he wants to, you know, jump on
Well,
that
and
train.
remind me to come back to the part where you said he wasn't hurting money because I have a thought that I heard about him that I want to hear you comment on, because I think I know what your answer is going to be. But it's extremely interesting because I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I mean it's not a political podcast, but sometimes these guys touch on current events, and it just sometimes it happens to turn. And these guys are not what I would consider conservative people. And I mean, obviously, a lot of stuff they lean pretty far left on, and some of the stuff they're pretty moderate, and some of the stuff they lean kind of right on. So it's an interesting. I like to hear all sides. I like to hear a bunch of people's opinions. Obviously, if anybody knows me, they know I'm extremely hard headed, and I really don't care about other people's opinions that much. I mean, there's very few and far in between people's opinions I actually care about. And some people say, "Oh, you're closed minded." No, I just know what I'm talking about. But
Right.
they were talking about how out in the east, especially in the deep south, we all kind of look at California as this place that is just kind of like a godless leftist arena where all this stuff. But I mean, a lot of these people who know these superstars, know these people, these actors who make millions and millions of dollars, and they profit off of capitalism so much that I mean their wealth will last them lifetimes, it'll last their grandchildren lifetimes, and so forth. But a lot they made the comment that you would be absolutely surprised the people who actually do lean towards the conservative slash Republican side of things that just don't come out and say anything about it because,
Right.
like we were touching on earlier, they don't want to be cancel culture. Yes, they want
Yeah, if you come
they
out and say you support Trump, they're gonna cancel the fuck out of you.
and,
Makes no
and
sense, stupid
and
bitches.
don't get me wrong, they probably I mean these people they live in Hollywood. They're probably not as conservative or right leaning as someone who like me is. They I mean these people probably when it comes to like abortion and homosexual marriage and things like that, they probably, yes, they probably lean more to the left side of the spectrum. But when it comes to things like upholding the Constitution and pushing a conservative agenda, pushing a strong economy, pushing things like people not, I mean, not pushing socialism like they claim to push when they're on social media or something like that. And it's just interesting for me to see, like, I really wish I knew who those people were. And I mean, obviously, I wouldn't out them. I just want to see who these. I mean, because it'd be interesting to see what those. And I think this falls. Elon Musk falls under this category, and this kind of goes back into what I was going to talk about when you were asking about. I mean, how wealthy he is. He said at one point that he realized that he was getting a lot of backlash for the things and possessions he has. So he's just selling it.
Yeah, I heard that. That was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah. And so,
I
I
heard
mean,
that, and
he's
I
just
find that
getting rid of it.
interesting. I find that very interesting because you don't see many people like that are willing to give up their
Well,
material things.
and I don't think it's mainly because of the backlash that he's got, because, there's going to be some blue haired, 350-pound woman that's like, you can't tell me what to do because you own all this stuff and you're a billionaire. And I mean, you don't know what it's like to live this life of a blue haired, 350-pound woman. I mean, I don't think he did that because, or is doing that because strictly because of that. He said, yeah, I mean, it came to mind at first because of backlash that he would get, arguments he would see people on Twitter and stuff like that. And but a lot of this stuff that he said that he was the reason he was doing it is just to get back to where in he could just think. And all of his time was spent on he made a point one time. He's like, what's more important, running the Boring Company or getting us to Mars?
Yeah, I remember that.
And so I thought it was extremely interesting that this man is, I mean, because obviously is a billionaire. If I was a billionaire, the last thing I would give a good damn about was getting to Mars.
Yeah, he's very interesting, man, and you
I
can
would
tell he's very intelligent. I mean,
I
it's
would look
obvious.
at Mars at nighttime through my $100,000 telescope and just flick it off because I wouldn't care anything about Mars if I was a billionaire.
Yeah, I
But
have
the
to agree.
man is so things like that bore him. I
Yeah,
mean, if I had a multi-million-dollar pad with all the nice cars and all
10
the nice,
cars. Yeah,
yeah, all the nice pool in the backyard, the indoor and outdoor bar with their own bartender that I employ, I wouldn't be thinking about stuff like this. And this man is literally, I mean, too smart for his own good, really.
yeah.
Because I mean, you
But
have
thank God he is smart
everything
because he's
exactly. I
done a lot
mean,
of good for us.
his his brain is just. I don't know how he talks to regular people. Because have you ever talked to somebody who is really just not that intelligent? I mean, like I said, I'm not putting down on people. I mean, I'm sure there's people who's talked to me and be like, man, this dude's dumb as hell. Because because I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But I mean, I've met people before and I'm like, man, I can't talk to this person any longer because I'm killing brain cells here. Imagine that's got to be at least how he feels on a daily basis
Yeah,
is
pretty
just
much
like I mean,
everybody.
his brain is a supercomputer, and if he was to come up and talk to me, he'd just be like, "Dude, I'd be telling him my life story, everything, the most interesting things that's ever happened to me," and he'd be like, "Okay, see ya."
Yeah, fuck off, guy. Yeah, yeah, he's a very interesting guy. Like you said, hats off to him. I'm glad he's been so outspoken during this, to be honest, because he does have a big platform and a lot of people can see it. And a lot of people respect his opinion, whether they want to admit it or not. I mean, people that are commenting up under his tweets and shit are saying, "Oh, your shit don't count because you're a doctor," but you're reading it and you're responding to it.
Well,
So
and
it
I'm
must have
I'm hoping
fucking
that
it
it's
must have
not
made
just something that he's trying to go ahead and get it. I hope it's something where he continues to influence because I mean, whether you are on the right or the left, you got to admit you do love the freedoms that our Constitution upholds.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely.
I really hope that he stays on this train. Where I mean, obviously he's a big voice in any platform. So I hope he stays on this train where he keeps pushing the Constitution and keeps preaching it to people who may or may not know about it. I mean, because I mean, I've seen videos of college students where they ask them questions. I mean, like how many stars are on the flag, and they just don't know.
84.
And you're like, how the hell do you not know that? I mean, but I think it's a good thing if he's serious about it. And I mean, politics aside, upholding our Constitution and preaching its praises and standing up for freedom and liberty is something that's extremely refreshing for me to see out of California.
Absolutely, I'd have to agree. Um, anything else you want to talk about?
I think we've about covered it all, buddy. Unless you got something.
No, not right now. But we will be recording again one day this weekend, possibly Friday night, Saturday night, somewhere in there. So y'all can look for the next episode then. Make sure to subscribe on all platforms. Make sure to share, tell a friend. We're trying to grow this thing.
Yeah, y'all
As you
make
can
sure
tell
y'all
by the
comment too on everything.
yeah,
Like if I mean Tate puts up his stuff, a lot of the times we want to do a podcast, but we just don't have anything to talk about, and we don't want to sit here for 15 minutes and bore y'all to death and talk about stuff that nobody cares about, or just pull random stuff on the Twitter trending page and talk about it. So make sure you comment on these Facebook posts or these tweets and let us know what you want to hear.
yeah, guys, we're not going anywhere. As you can see by my recent post on Facebook, we now have a cover art for our podcast, Tate and Josh in the Morning. So make sure you like that. It's pretty
Shout out to
badass.
Tate too, because a lot of people are asking, like, who did that for y'all? Who did? I mean, who'd y'all pay to do that? Tate did that all on his own, literally just by taking pictures of our heads. So,
Yeah, basically, I just got an app that it's not really hard. It's just time consuming, really. I guess you could say.
well, I'm
Get a
not very
picture.
computer savvy, so I was
All you got to
impressed.
do is you like scan your face and then you trace like you with like your mouse, you trace the marks on your face, like the jawline and stuff like that. Then you just color it in. It's not hard, but I just watched several hours of tutorials on YouTube before I ever did one. But anyway, so make sure we're trying to get serious about it. If y'all want to get some shirts, we might do that. My sister just got a heat press, so she can make us some shirts for the low. So how about this? Well, all right. Well, I'm gonna think of a contest, and then we'll give away a free shirt to somebody. How about that? So stay tuned. In the next episode, I'll have that up, and we'll figure out what we're gonna do for it. Anyway, it's been your boy Tate and Josh. Boys, Tate and Josh. Peace.
Holla. 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 Holla.
Thanks for tuning into the B-Max Sports Podcast.
40, 1, Lindsay, 25, 20, 50, 10, 5, Lindsay, stop.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Listen, my whole family loves it, man.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
We'll see you next week.
Go rock this thing, huh? Love you, man. Let's go get it.